Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be reviewing an album what today celebrates its 50th anniversary. I'm going to be looking at the Beach Boys' classic album Pet Sounds. So this was the band's 11th studio album, of course released 50 years ago today on the 16th of May in 1966. The album is an absolute classic, is often cited as one of the all-time greatest albums ever made. Supposedly the album came about when Brian Wilson, who was the Beach Boys' main creative force, heard the Capitol Records version of the Beatles' Rubber Soul. He was so impressed with that he wanted to do one better than it and make in his mind the greatest album of all time. So with that he left his bandmates out to tour while he stayed back and recorded this album in Hollywood with a collaborator called Tony Asher, who wrote most of the lyrics to this album. So as I said, it was recorded in Hollywood in various studios using session musicians, some of the best in the world, known as the Wrecking Crew. Wilson wanted to emulate the wall of sound production style pioneered by Phil Spector. Now, over the years, some people have cited this as the first concept album. Me personally, I don't see it that way. It doesn't tell a story. There's not really a narrative, but there is sort of a thread of a mood what runs through this album and lyrical themes. But for me, it isn't really what you would call a concept album. Now, when this was issued in 1966 in America, it got a rather lukewarm critical reception. And commercially as well, it debuted at only 106 in the US charts, but it would then it would eventually get to number 10, but still only sold a fraction of what the Beach Boys' previous albums had sold. Basically, Capitol Records were worried at the Beach Boys changing direction, and they decided to issue a greatest hits, the best of the Beach Boys, at exactly the same time as this, and promote and push the album instead. What can kind of be attributed to this album's rather commercial failure in America at the time it was released. In contrast to that though, the album fared better in the UK. It reached number 2 on the British charts, and it stayed in the top 10 for 6 months. That was probably helped a little by a lot of British musicians really raving about this album, such as Lennon McCartney and Keith Moon of The Who. They were all big fans of the Beach Boys. And certainly in subsequent years, many other artists have cited this as being very influential to their music. It's also critically as well much more accepted, it was placed at number 2 on Rolling Stone magazine's top 500 greatest albums of all time. So I'm now just going to show you my vinyl copy of the album here. This is a remastered edition. Not too sure what year this is from, but this is an American pressing of it here. It's it's Capitol Vault's pressing, limited edition. So there's a cover there of photo of the band taken in San Diego Zoo. There's the back of it there, just a collage of photos and a track listing. And then in here we get a replica of what the original advertisement sleeve looks like there. So we do get various Beatles albums and stuff on here, and other easy listening stuff there. And then the record itself comes in a really nice protective inner sleeve here, sort of lined. And this is a brilliant pressing, sounds fantastic, no skips of anything. Really heavy 180 gram vinyl, and it's a nice replica of the original Capitol label. So I'm now just going to go over all of the album's songs. There are 13 songs here, and basically what I'll do is I will give each song a score out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage for this album. Wouldn't it be nice if we were older than we would? The first track in is called Wouldn't It Be Nice, and I'm sure that you all know this song. This is a very popular song, and for me would be a 10 out of 10. Great start to the album, I love it. It sort of starts off with sort of a harpsichord introduction, I think it is, and then you get this drum beat, and then the song kicks in. It's a great start to the album. Surely one of the greatest album openers of all time. For me it is. Great lyrics as well, sort of quite innocent lyrics, sort of about young love and things wouldn't it be nice if we were a bit older, then we could get married and do all these things. Really nice, sort of innocent lyrics, and like sort of big sound of this one. Like again, like you really do get the sense of like I'm trying to emulate Phil Spector's sort of like wall of sound production. It's a really great sound to this song here, and like Brian Wilson was like a great like arranger like on this album. Second track in is called You Still Believe in Me, and I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. I'd probably say that this is one of like the weakest ones like on the album. It's like slightly weak for like the second track. Certainly is like a bit of like a come down from like Wouldn't It Be Nice. And like supposedly this one is like about like a lost childhood and like again like sort of like that lamenting like a lost age. That this one like also featured like, many sound effects, what was like unheard of on like popular records, and like a bicycle bell and like horn or like featured like on like this track here. Like it's a nice song, it's got like some nice wee vocal bits in it, but like overall for me it isn't like one of like, my favourites like from this album. My folks when I wrote told them what I was up to, said. Third track in is called That's Not Me, and I love this track, giving it a 9 out of 10. Very sort of like vulnerable lyrics, sort of like reflective as well, and supposedly like influenced by like Brian Wilson's like drug use like around like this time, and like his nervous breakdown like a couple of like months like before like the release of this album. The song moves along nicely, and like it sort of like it like contrasts like different sort of quieter sections and like louder, more like fuller sounding parts like off this track. Really clever like the way it's sort of like constructed this song, and like many of like the other album tracks as well. Next up is Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder. And I really like this one, again, giving it an 8 out of 10. It's like a more slower, sort of softer ballad, and like it features like more like classical instruments. Like I don't believe that like any of like like the other Beach Boys like actually feature like on the song. It's just Brian and like sort of like all like these orchestra and like that playing like along with it. It's really nice like when like you're playing it like within the album, but it isn't one that I would ever sort of choose to like listen to like outside the album. But it just works like it just works like as its place like as an album track. I'm waiting for the day when you can. Next up is called I'm Waiting for the Day, and I love this song. This is a brilliant track, giving this a full 10 out of 10. It's like it sort of starts off really great, upbeat sounding, and like I think it was like someone like about YouTube. I think they're called Classic Album Reviews or Classic Vinyl Reviews. They like recently reviewed this album, and like he was sort of saying that it's like musical like metaphors you get like on this album, and like I do like get what like he's saying, like sort of like the start of this song, like he said was like it was like confidence, and that like we get like we get like these big sort of drum sounds and like that coming through, and then like later on like in like this one we get more like oboes and like flutes coming in, sort of like represent like a more darker, more like introspective side of like the song, and like the lyrics match that as well. So like I think like that's like quite like an important thing. Like the lyrics are matching sort of what like the music's doing, which is like pretty good. Very dynamic song this, and like it does like alternate again, bit like That's Not Me between like sort of like louder, more fuller sections and like quiet, more like darker, like introspective bits. So yeah, absolutely love this song. Next track up is like the first of 2 instrumental songs on the album. This one is called Let's Go Away for a While, and I do like this one quite a bit. It's like quite like classical like influenced. It's like a really nice piece of music actually. Like again, like it's not one what like I would like really play outside of like the album context, but it is just a really beautiful track. It doesn't drag at all. It just really fits in like with the album, and again like I've read that like these instrumental tracks were used as sort of breathers for like the album. Like it was like supposed to like prepare you for like the next section like of the album. And now closing side 1, we get the song Sloop John B. This was the first single released from the album, and it reached number 3 in like the American charts and number 2 in Britain. And many people like I've said that this song doesn't actually fit with like the rest of the album, like it's a cover song, like it's like a traditional like old like folk song dating back to like the 1930s I think, of course like reworked and like rearranged by like Brian Wilson. and like many say like it doesn't fit, like it isn't about like love or like loss of innocence or like stuff like that. Like it's just like this sort of like this old folk song. But like I say, like it does sort of fit. Like I mean, it's got like the same sort of like production style. Like it's musically very similar. Like it was, of course, like recorded with like the same musicians in like the same sessions. But like in some ways, the lyrics do fit. Like stuff like the lines like "I want to go home." It's sort of like it's like sort of like trying to like get back to like your roots and like where like you like really like belong. Which like again is like a theme that does crop up on like many of these album songs. So like it's maybe like a little bit like too similar to like the earlier Beach Boys stuff to really like have like a place like on this album. But like I can't really argue with the fact that it is like a great track and like they do like a great version of it.
God only knows what I'd be without you.
Flipping over the record now to side 2, we open up with God Only Knows. Giving this a 10 out of 10. This is an absolute classic song, really a timeless track. This really again like interesting like instrumentation like he uses like on this one, and like he's got like different things going on, like different sections. You got like the nice verse and then like a wee like middle like instrumental bit where I think like only like occurs about once like in like the song, and then like towards the end the vocals stacking like the layering like of it. It sounds really beautiful. But like at the time as well, like there was like a bit of like, well, like not controversy but like doubts like as to like whether like a song like with like the title God Only Knows, with God like in like the title of it would like actually get like any airplay and like would maybe like and like was even like appropriate. Like of course like nowadays we only think twice about like this song, like we just sort of like take this track for granted. But certainly like at like the time that they're like unsure like if like this song will like get played, but like that definitely paid off. Like it's made it like really distinctive song, and like it is like one of like the best pop songs like of all time. Someone like who like agrees with like Paul McCartney, like he says that like this is like his like favourite song like of all time, and like he can't be wrong. So like yeah, it's like a fantastic track. Second track on side 2 is I Know There's an Answer. Another 10 out of 10 for me. I think this is like a great track. Again, originally this one was called Hang On To Your Ego, about like the drugs what like Brian Wilson like was like using. How like however Mike Love refused to sing those lyrics, so he decided to change it to like I Know There's an Answer, which are maybe like a little bit like less distinctive, but I can still do that. Like the actual track is like brilliant, and like I'm basically like the rest of like, the song is like exactly the same as like the original Hang On To Your Ego. So yeah, I really like this song as well.
You've got to keep in mind, love is here.
Now the next track is probably my absolute favourite song like, from this album. Like it's a strange choice to know to pick like as a favourite, but I'm going with Here Today. Giving this another 10 out of 10, and like I just love this one. The like arranging to this one I think is absolutely like exquisite. It's just the way like he puts like the instruments together, and like there's like a middle bit like it's all like features like a guitar and like an organ. Like the way like they just like advance and build like on each other is like absolutely fantastic. Lyrics to this one are like maybe like a bit more like pessimistic than like some of like the other stuff like on this album. Is a bit more like about like the breakdown like of like a relationship and like the loss of love. The mono version of this song here like is actually quite odd. Like it features like sort of like studio chatter in like the middle like instrumental bit. Well, like I think like kind of like maybe like ruins like the track like a little bit. Well ruins is like a strong word. Like maybe just like I prefer like the steadier bits like of this song. But I have got all on like a CD. But like I forgot to like bring it downstairs with me. But yeah, like overall a fantastic track, and like one like my absolute favourite from this album. We get a song called I Just Wasn't Made For These Times, and I again really like this one. An 8 out of 10 for me. Another interesting, intriguing track. This one about more like depression and like social anxiety, like again like many like emotions what like Brian Wilson like was going through like at the time. It's not one of like my absolute favourites. Like it is like a slightly like slower one again, but like it is still like a great song. Like I really can't take like too much like away from it. Then we get the title track, which is an instrumental number called, of course, Pet Sounds. Giving this a 7 out of 10. I used to really love this song, but like it's kind of like sort of like gone down like the ranks like a little bit for me. Sort of more like features more like a Latin sort of rhythm and like percussion played through like a Leslie speaker cabinet where like they would normally put like an organ through and like that. Interesting track, but like nowadays it isn't one that like often like come back to. But like it is like quite nice to listen to. But it's really like nothing more than like sort of like background music almost.
Where did your long hair go?
Then the album closes with Caroline No, and I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. A lovely, nice, tender ballad. This just features Brian Wilson like on like this song, like of course with like the session musicians, and like again like lovely lyrics on like this sort of about like the loss of like innocence and like wanted to go back to like a time like when like he wasn't famous and like wasn't like under pressure and like wasn't like a beach boy basically, and like I feel like all like these social troubles and like drug problems, like everything like that. This was released actually like ahead of the album, like as a single, like as like a solo Brian Wilson single, but like it was like a flop. And like, but like overall though, it is a really nice, poignant album closer. Just like really rounds things off great, I feel. Right, so overall it would be a score of 88% for this album. A truly great album, I feel. And like it certainly changed like a lot of like things like at the time. Music, like after this, music became a lot more serious and like a lot more like culturally relevant as well. Like of course like this was sort of started like a couple of years back with like Bob Dylan, like the Freewheeling, and like Paul Simon and like those sort of like more like folk songwriters. But this was certainly like music was becoming much more like important, and like albums especially were like becoming like a lot more like relevant to like culture. And like for me, like it's like the arrangements like on this album what like I keep like coming back to. Like it's like really fascinating album, like how this was at 1966 and like he's got really strange things like going on. Like he's got theremins, he's got accordions, he's got all sorts of like classical instruments what like really were like out of place like on like a pop record like of the time. Like I'm like a massive fan of like the Beach Boys. Like I only have this album and like a greatest hits of like the earlier stuff. And like for me, this is like the only album what like I really sort of come to from them. Cause like after this, there was Smile was like supposed to come after this. However, that never got released like at the time because Brian had like another like nervous breakdown. And like you don't really hear like much of like the late 60s, like early 70s releases. Like it really like only seems to be this one what gets like heralded like as like a classic album. Like also like before like I go, I just want to like give like a recommendation to like a film called Love and Mercy. Like I saw this like out at my granddad's house. Like he's got like a DVD of it. It's basically like about like the life of like Brian Wilson, but like it's quite like an interesting film. It's sort of like it has the two sort of stories that running like at once. Like one is from like the mid 60s, like recording this album, so we see inside the studio like the wrecking crew and like of course like it's like also like staged like the film of course, but like it's like you see them like recording it, but then on like the other side it's more like his like later life and like when like, he was like ill and like he had like his doctor like he was like abusive to him and like that. So like it is like a really like interesting like biopic like on him. Well, like I would like recommend like trying to find like a DVD of it or something because like, I thought that it was like a fantastic film. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed like this review and like I'd like to know what like you think like of this album, because I know that like this album has like its massive fans, but then like there's also people like who aren't like too keen on it either. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Vibration.